This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by the Genesis Company, coming at you Wednesday morning. It's November 15th. The Wolves win the fight Tuesday night against Golden State, sweeping their two-game road trip in San Francisco. That's now 7 straight wins for the Wolves, something they haven't done since 2003. They're 8-2. Only Denver has a better record than the Wolves do. Only Boston has a better point differential. Two teams the Wolves have actually beaten on this win streak. Jace, I got Jace Frederick here from the Pioneer Press with me. We'll get into the fight here in a second because obviously that's a big part of this game, or the early part of this game. But I like what you wrote after the first of the two games against the Warriors. Just kind of the new idea that the Wolves in a matchup against the Golden State Warriors pretty clearly look like the superior team. Top to bottom, I would assume that holds in your mind after winning again on Tuesday. You got to start by just expanding on that idea because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just ask you this, and it's kind of true of everybody, but especially like Golden State. But how many times now are teams lining up and you are saying their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guy is better than Minnesota's?
Mm-hmm.
it's almost never. I mean, it really is. And Golden State, you look and it's like they're playing 4 or 5 guys plus who wouldn't play in Minnesota's rotation. I mean, that's just undeniable. Dario Saric would not play in Minnesota's rotation. Moody would not play in Minnesota's rotation. I could go on and on and on down the list. And it's just
those wouldn't have been the first two I would have chosen, but
no, they've got worse players. But I'm just saying guys who are playing a lot and they would not play in the rotation. Gary Payton, frankly, would have a hard time, I think, getting into this rotation, because of how poorly he shoots the ball. That's what you kind of notice on a nightly basis, but it especially stands out when it's the Warriors, who are this pinnacle of the league for however long. You just look at it's Minnesota's roster is just way better. It's not surprising when they go into Golden State and win twice. And obviously there were extenuating circumstances last night, but Sunday they were way better. Winning by 6 was a lot of things had to go wrong to only win by 6. That's true on a nightly basis. But the fact that it was Golden State, that it was in San Francisco, and it's usually a house of horrors for anybody, and Minnesota included. And it's well, they're going to lose here eventually. Now it's the whole game. I was they're not going to lose this game. There's no way. Because it's just Golden State does not have the firepower to stick up, to go against the Minnesota, to stress Minnesota's defense, any of it. It just doesn't feel like Minnesota's going to lose to a team like that. They have, and that is how significantly in my mind they have passed Golden State just in terms of roster building.
Yeah, it's even if we just take the first game, right? Pre-fight. What just blatantly stood out to me after the first half of that game was in person how physical Golden State was playing. It was every time Rudy was rolling down the lane, they were hitting him. It was pushes on the offensive glass. And I was just, obviously I haven't watched Golden State that closely this season, but I was just talking to some people at halftime of that game, after the game, and they're this is what Golden State is now. That's their thing. They're older, and they are, apparently it is a talking point around the league of this team is just, as maybe the talent's gone down a little bit, they're just going to up the physicality. And kind of to their credit, a lot of them are fouls, but I think they do a good job of pushing it as far as the refs will let them. I mean, again, we're not talking about the fight. I'm just talking about possession to possession. They know what grabs they can get away with, pushes they can get away with 80% of the time, And
that never bothers me. I can tell it bothers some Wolves fans, but I'm well, then this is how a lot of playoff games are officiated. These things are let go. So if that's the way, and we all love it, so if that's the way a regular season game is officiated, why would we be frustrated? Sure, it's not consistent night to night, but I have no problem with that, frankly, when physicality is allowed.
It is just kind of the shift or the difference, right? Is Golden State's understandable semi-deterioration of talent as these players get older and older. They've replaced it with physicality. And I mean, John and I were recording before the game yesterday. We both were man, it is going to be a fight right away. Not, it didn't literally mean a fight, but you just kind of knew that's particularly playing the Wolves over again. That's the one thing that really worked the first time. You knew it was going to be a physical game, but obviously didn't expect there to be 3 players ejected from the game before before any points were scored. I got a clip from Jaden talking after the game, but just I don't know. I'm at the stadium and I was just kind of lost in the swirl of it for a second. You're like trying to do the thing where you see 15 different things and log them in your mind. I guess just what was your initial reaction to how that all went down?
I mean, everybody's initial reaction is just going to be like, "What is Draymond doing?" I mean, that is the obvious one. Like,
Yeah.
putting somebody in not just like a chokehold, and then but just like not letting go. It's one thing to
Right.
like do whatever method you feel is necessary to like pull somebody off your teammate or whatever you think you see in that moment and reacting
Hmm.
to it. But then to just not let go, to just keep doing it, to just clearly like we've seen it. You could tell Draymond Green does not like or respect Rudy Gobert. I've noticed that from numerous matchups. Like, but he just clearly is taking it all out in that moment. It's like this is not something you can do on anywhere, let alone a basketball court, like, so that was a little wild. Just the
It was
initial thing.
9 seconds. There were people like timing
Yeah,
it
that's wild.
in the media room. 9 second chokehold. I mean,
You see like frustrations boil over for like a second in,
yeah.
in these type of situations, and somebody's like pulls you off and it's like, yeah, okay.
Well, that's why it wasn't frustration boiling over. It was making a point.
Right.
And I think, we're recording this pretty early on Wednesday morning. There's been no suspension or anything laid down. I'm assuming that's going to come, but when you watch that over again, you can tell that Draymond's making a point. And even if his initial reaction was like, Rudy's on my guy, like you understand some of that, but to come in and to hold like that, you almost know that Draymond is doing that because there's going to be clips of it and everything. And he
Right.
loves the idea that now there's a snapshot of him literally holding Rudy Gobert like mercilessly in a headlock. I don't know. I mean, it's just this is part of the Draymond experience. I think the bigger point though or Rudy's point would be that they won, and that was clearly the mentality from him. I think just he didn't fight back, and I think Rudy really was a lot more focused on winning that game than Draymond was. Right? Draymond did what he wanted to get done, and I think Rudy did what he wanted to get done, and ultimately the Wolves coming on top. Rudy said, sorry, I don't have a clip from there, but Rudy said in the locker room after the game, it's kind of funny because before the game, I was telling myself that Steph is not playing, so I know Draymond is going to try and get ejected because every time Steph doesn't play, he doesn't want to play. It's his guy, Steph. He'll do anything he can to get ejected. Clown behavior, and I'm proud of myself for being the bigger man again and again. And yeah, doesn't even deserve me putting my hands on him. My team needed me tonight. I did whatever I could to keep my cool and then show that I wasn't making the situation worse. And I do hope the league is going to do what needs to be done because that's just clown behavior. Not much to say. It's clown behavior. That was Rudy after the game. He laid into Draymond afterwards. It's a natural response because Draymond laid into him on the floor. What'd you think of Rudy's post-game quotes, Jace?
I totally understand, like, and because I don't think it was a surprise to anybody that Draymond was going to do something in this game. Like,
Right.
I don't think we're going to win this game. We don't have Steph. I don't really want to be out here. Those types of things. Like, and so what can I do to make a scene and get gone? I do think it's funny when Rudy's like, I did a great job not putting my hands on him. It's like, I also went to put my hands on somebody who has me in a dead headlock. What are you going to do? What was he going to do? Just wildly swing backwards with his hand? Like,
Yeah.
good job by me. It's like, yeah, I mean, like,
Right.
I don't doubt that he wouldn't have maybe showed his cool anyway, but I'm like, you kind of didn't really have the opportunity to. Like, you were surprised, put in a chokehold, and then just like held in it for forever. I don't know how else you would have responded than however a human being would have responded, which is just be like,
yeah.
like, what else are you gonna do? But yeah, I think in the end, like, I don't know if you saw this, but like Patrick Beverley put out, on his podcast, probably maybe the most obvious Pat Bev response ever, like calling out Cat and even Ant for not like putting Draymond in a chokehold right behind him. Like, you got to stand up for your guy. You can't just let Rudy stand there and he sees like that really showed me something. Like, I taught Cat better than that. Those types of things. But it's such a fine line to walk in my mind of like, you want to have your teammates back, whatever. But we also talk about, they can't lose their heads. This is a team that needs to show maturity and not losing their cool. Like, so I think that
I had some of
Minnesota
those
did was
thoughts.
fine.
I had some of those thoughts at the moment.
Like nobody's backing him up. Yeah,
yeah.
I actually see that. I understand that to a large degree of like you're just letting this
I'm not saying it's right, but it's like
right. I also don't really have like I see both sides of it of like you could do something, but we do also harp on them like not losing their cool. You
right.
know, and
True.
keeping your
That's totally
composure.
fair.
So it's two sides, and I don't know where is like the happy medium if there is one there or what. But it's really interesting to watch those things play out. I just don't think it's going to be in like, you know, like in Cat's nature to walk in there and insert himself into a hostile thing. Like as far as Minnesota winning the game, Minnesota did the best possible thing.
Yeah,
you know, nothing.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
like so it is complicated.
And it wasn't full Jarrett Culver. Remember when Jarrett Culver dunked on Robin Lopez and then Lopez just like tracked him down like a dinosaur up the floor and no Wolves got in the way there. So he was just hunting him down. I mean, obviously Mike was in the mix there. And I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what that feels like to be involved in that like 18 seconds of
what's interesting there though is so like Rudy did come to Jaden McDaniel's defense. You know, like that's how he got himself into the situation. So like, you know, there are probably like our little dynamics you could point to. I don't know if any of them mean anything because we don't know like how you respond in a split second.
Oh, I'm not going there.
Yeah, it does not say anything about how I feel about you, my personal thing or whatever. Like fight or flight, I'm flighting every time. You know, like it's just like how do you react in a split moment? You're also like shocked, you know, like what is happening? You know, so it's some people are geared to get in there, and some people are geared to be like, what is going on? What are we doing here?
Right.
I don't.
Particularly 90 seconds into the game, right?
Right.
Like you just like Mike said afterwards, he was like, he goes, we're all basically still kind of getting warmed up at that point of the game. He's like, we haven't even been playing for 2 minutes. So he's like, I never experienced anything like that. Here's Jaden on the altercation as he was asked about it after the game.
Surprised at how it escalated like that, though, right after you and Clay tussled at the center court?
I was kind of surprised. I didn't know, Draymond was going to do all that. That was kind of surprising for me. But other than that, it was just a little altercation.
Last question. Did you get a view of when Draymond came in and, how that all jumped off?
Not really. I didn't really notice till after I came in here, start seeing all the memes and stuff. But, you know how social media get.
Locker room was funny, man. It was, we walk in there and it's like, we're in San Francisco. So it's just the horde of national media. And like Josh Minot is like filming how big the media circle is because he never seen more than like 6 of us around him. Ant is like standing up on his locker, being like the judge. He's like, not guilty on all accounts. It was obviously a lot more fun environment in that locker room afterwards because the Wolves won that game. But
I want to pose this. What do you think about just that? And I think that a lot of people will be like, well, he's never the one doing it first, but just that Jaden just keeps finding himself in these altercations, you know, like whether it's Jamal Murray pushing him and he pushes him back, you know, or now this Clay thing, like we're only a few games, really like 10 games into the year. And like, this keeps popping up. Like he's obviously like a physical defender. And so he's going to get under people's skin, whether he says anything or not. It's just like, do you think that's just a byproduct of the way he plays, or is there something he can do differently about this? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like we need to remember that Jaden McDaniels, his freshman year of college, like led the nation in technicals. And part of the reason he dropped to 28th or whatever it was in the first round is there was like character questions, as they say, or whatever. And a lot of it had to do with the technicals and those sort of things, which was always like, it was so funny to me, like Jaden's rookie year when, you know, we're around this like shy, quiet 19, 20-year-old. And I'm like, what was going on when you were at Washington, you know? But he has that, like, he has a streak that makes him go hot, right? And I think it's actually a big part of what makes him a great defender.
I agree.
Makes him consistently go up, over, under, whatever screens he has to do. But you said he gets under people's skin that way. People also get under his skin, right? And I guess if we're like critiquing the behavior, it's what can you do, you know, to not let people be under your skin as much, or the refs. I mean, how many times have we seen it that, you know, he does pick up the the 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game, and it's very dysregulating for him for the rest of the time. So yeah, while everything is like happy-go-lucky, you won this game right now, I think it is an interesting question. I think we got to remember he's 23 or whatever it is, but I don't know. I don't know why it happens to him that much, other than I guess he just plays hard and runs a little bit hot, and you don't want to remove that from his game either. So just kind of is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Like it is part of what makes him a good player, a really good defender specifically. Is just like that fire, that competitiveness of like, you're not scoring on me, and like that's any means necessary, and taking things personally. And I just think like where he's at now is fine. It's just every time you just write something off as, it just happens,
Yeah,
like
no, it's good to bring up. Yeah,
it's just something where like you just don't let it get farther and farther, I guess. Like, like where he's at right now, I think is okay. Things happen. Sure, you'd like it to be a little bit better, but like you just can't allow yourself to like end up being like at Dylan Brooks level. And he's not anywhere close to there now. I'm not saying that he's a better player than Dylan Brooks, I think, but
there's a line of cross, or I mean, Pat
it can't
cross that sometimes too.
It just can't become like, you can't become that a character out there,
Mhm.
and I don't think he is. Like, is he so soft spoken and whatnot? I don't think that's his motivation ever. Where I think it is sometimes some of these guys' motivation.
True.
I would just say like it would just be something that I'd be mindful of him. I'm like, I can't have this be like a reputation of mine.
Yeah. Have the reputation of being the good defender, which is going to come with some scuffs here and there. But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's part of it. It's just don't let it get any further than it has to get.
We have 2 tickets to give away from the Genesis Company. We're doing this for a handful of games over the course of the season to Patreon subscribers. 2 tickets for the game against the Sixers on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It'll probably be a pretty sick game. If you, or for those of you who are Patreon subscribers, just send us a message that you are available for that game. Of the people that say they're available to go, we will randomly select one of the Patreon subscribers for those tickets. It's 2 lower level tickets, kind of close to the middle of the floor there. If you are a Patreon subscriber, we appreciate that. If you want to become one and, support the show and also have a chance to get some of these tickets throughout the season, that's patreon.com/DaneMooreNBA. There's a link in the show notes, but that's patreon.com/DaneMooreNBA. Let us know. And we'll pick out who wins that probably on like Monday. So appreciate that. Think it'll be a fun game. I mean,
They always get fun home pre-Thanksgiving games. Like the
I
Miami
know
one
I'm
was
always
that,
gone
the
too.
Philly one.
I always leave. I miss like the Gabe Vincent dunk game because I leave town for Thanksgiving. But I'm like, damn, I'm missing the Wolves Sixers game.
That should be fun. I mean, it will be 2 of the like maybe 3 or 4 best records in the NBA. So
I haven't got a chance. I watched a little bit of Philly last night before the game. They're playing the Pacers.
Right.
But yeah, they are like the team that we do this every year where we write off a team based on preseason narrative, and obviously like the Harden stuff was for sure messy, but like I think just that we allowed that to forget how much other talent that the Sixers have in that team, like actually growing talent too, and Tyrese Maxey. So, I mean, I used to be like, when the Wolves were playing a really good team, I would almost not like it because it was like it wasn't going to be competitive, Sure. Now it's like, I don't know if I would normally go to Boston for the second Boston game, but I kind of want to go to Boston now to be able to see that game. This team, I mean, the Wolves are just one of the best teams in the NBA, right? Like that's just a point of fact at this point of time, and that makes it sweet to play the other best teams in the league. I think, Jace, what made them the superior team last night, what made them look like one of the best teams in the NBA last night, was not the first 45 minutes of that game. They got dysregulated by the fight, of course. But the end of the game, man, there was some real professional plays. And I think, maybe the last 90 seconds of the game, there was the Kyle Anderson offensive rebound where he rebounds it, kicks it out to Conley, who swings it to Cat for the big 3. There was the Rudy Gobert show on Chris Paul, recover to the corner, block the Dario Saric three. And there was obviously the huge play at the end of the game where Ant gets to the middle of the floor, doesn't take the shot, finds Mike Conley in the corner for there. I mean, that's like 3 big boy plays from this team, including one of all 5 players who were on the floor at that time. I mean, that's just a really impressive stretch with impact from all 5 players on the floor. Maybe that's just a way to kind of start talking about these guys. Which one of those 3 plays, I think you know all what I'm describing, stood out to you most?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was probably, I mean, the Rudy thing, we just see him do things like that. Like, that was spectacular,
Sure.
but we see him do things like that. Like Kyle getting a rebound, kicking Cat, making an open 3. Great. It was probably Ant. It was just like, it was a combination of just not forcing the shot that definitely wasn't there. And it was just like, that was a great vision. Like, and that's a hard pass to pull off. And like, it
Totally,
almost
man.
looks like it's like a corner of your eye kind of thing. And so just the ability to do that in those types of moments, it makes you so much harder to guard moving forward when teams can't be like, well, it's the 10 seconds left. Anthony Edwards is going to shoot it. We can sell out. Now that thought is in your mind of like, he might kick. And if Mike Conley's in the corner, Mike Conley's an excellent catch and shoot player, you know, like, so now it might even be easier for Ant to actually be the guy the next time around. But the awareness of where Conley is, the ability to make that pass, it's just a hard pass in general. I mean, just the cognitive ability to say like, okay, there are 3 guys right around me here. Somebody's open. I thought that was super impressive for his growth.
And it's exactly what Mike Conley has been talking to us about from training camp, of what he's trying to impart on Ant as being more of the kind of other primary initiator on the team. I asked Mike after the game if he kind of took some pride in seeing that play out.
Mike, you talked about wanting to see Ant grow as a kind of pseudo point guard out there. I mean, do you have some pride in the decision making he made in that play there?
I don't like to take much credit, man, but, you know, he's listening. You know, he's listening. He's doing a good job of just, you know, that's what leaders do. I mean, whether you're vocal or on the court kind of leader, like he's taking the reins and putting us on his back, and that's another way you can do it. You don't always have to make the fadeaway. You don't always have to make the big, you know, flashy play. He made the right read, and we got rewarded for it.
That's the thing, right, man? Like, I love that last part. It doesn't always need to be like the flashy play. There's gonna be plenty of times where like the flashy play is actually like the necessary play, where maybe getting to the middle floor and making that pass. If Mike is like not wide open, making that pass, you're frustrated by it. If that gets tipped or whatever, it's like, go be the best player, go take. Right, it was like KG thing forever.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It's
that
honestly,
the right play? Yeah.
I hate the narrative of that. It's like whenever you pass and the shot doesn't go in, all of a sudden it was not the right play. You're the best player. You got to take that shot. You got to take that shot. It's like, no, the right play is the right play. It just is. Like I very much feel that. Like, and like if Mike's not wide open, then that's not the right play.
Sure,
giving it to Mike. But it's just like, make whatever the right play is. And that was obviously the right play. There were times like, I remember a game last year where Ant kicked to Jaden, and I think Jaden missed it.
Yes.
It might have been the Utah game at home. And early in the year, and it's like, still the right play. Doesn't matter. You know, just make the right play, and that gives you the best percentage odds, and you're playing the odds from there.
Yeah, and it, like, the decisiveness of it and the speed with which he kind of like zipped that there. Like, Ant's, I mean, you just have to imagine he's run thousands of these actions against dummy defenders where it's like, okay, get to this spot, hit the corner here, hit the above the break here, take the shot here, you know? I mean, we've kind of even seen some of that in practice where they tell him what to do like a second or two before he has to make a decision. You know, Ant's not a perfect player in these ways at all yet. He's still learning, but it would be undeniable, or it would be untrue to say that he's not growing in his late game decision making and just overall ability to be a primary initiator. And credit to Mike for like seeding some of that ability. Or that would otherwise be his job, right? That Mike knows that there's only so much he can do as a point guard of this team. He probably can't make that play because he can't get into that spot as easily. He's not as big or whatever, or the same threat that's going to attract 2 defenders. Well, I'm liking the what'd you say?
There's something Mike Conley can't do.
Yeah, I'm talking to the wrong person.
There's
not going to be a second defender that comes over and collapses on Mike.
Yeah, you're right. He would have just scored himself. He probably would have
scored
floater. Yeah. Different ways to do things.
Point being, Mike as a leader for this group. I mean, I don't know. We've talked about this a million times, but it's good when we could see these things that are like a direct corollary between Mike's presence and results here.
What were you thinking when Ant was dribbling throughout that play?
A lot of dribbling.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this is gonna be terrible.
Mhm.
Like, like
But
you're
it was
dribbling
quick, man.
yourself-
That's what I'm saying. Decisive.
Right.
It was like decisive. There was
Right.
like a couple possessions earlier in the fourth that were like much more loping. Like
Right.
Ant like dribbled towards the baseline. He yanked it back. He was quickly, and then he
He was trying to
attacked.
get somewhere. Yep.
He was trying to get somewhere. He wasn't just trying to take a shot. Maybe that's
Right.
the difference.
Right. Wasn't just working it down to 4 and then be like, I'm
Mhm.
going to jack it up. I was
Yeah.
like, where's he going? I don't know what he's doing. But it was definitely like, good. And that's where it's tough, where it's like, they're kind of like, it's not like it's a straight triple, but it's so,
Mhm.
they're so like packed in there that there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But he just did enough and got to just the right spot through like 3 different routes to get there
That's
to where
right.
they totally were collapsed and somebody was wide open because Kyle went down
Mhm.
and drew down the defender, and now Mike's there. So like that pass wasn't there 3 seconds earlier.
Sure.
Like he dribbled enough as the play kind of, and it won't always
Mhm.
work out that way, but the play developed until somebody was open, and when somebody became wide open, he made the pass. So like that was a great job by him. I don't know what Mike Conley is like. He hits that 3 and he just stands there stone faced.
Yeah.
Like I think he was probably like, "Thank God we won this game."
Yeah, I think he was exhausted. Well, they needed every minute of Mike Conley last night. It
Yeah.
was like every second that Mike Conley was off the floor, I'm doing the, what salaries match to get Tyus Jones at the deadline. Like I
Yeah,
honestly,
right,
I mean that's
right.
kind of a separate topic, but uh, it's we don't need to be super nitpicking an 8-2 team that is wildly exceeded by expectations. I think this team needs a backup point guard.
I agree with that 100%. Like just like the personnel group on this team, I think they always kind of need a point guard or at least an
Yeah.
option for a point
Mhm.
guard out there. Now, like I say, like their roster
And like a Mike,
on-
it could be next to Ant, like doing the
Correct.
thing, but there just
correct
needs
same
to,
off ball, but it's an
Yeah.
option. Like
Mhm.
it's them. And like if Mike, if you'd like to give Mike a night off after he plays 30 some night or 32, 34, like tonight, if you wanted
Yes.
to give him a rest night, you don't have that option.
I
but
mean,
you'd love to.
he would be taking the night off if he played on, I think, like any other team in the NBA.
I agree with
tonight
that.
against
Yep.
Phoenix.
But like you said, I don't want to nitpick a roster because I think the roster is so much better than pretty much everybody
Yeah.
else's. But like when you look at but where is their potential for growth? That is the obvious one that sticks out.
And that's an easy to kind of attain one, like a competent backup point guard, that. And maybe it's J-Mac. Maybe it doesn't need to be a trade, but like those are the things that you want, like good teams get at the deadline. What is our
Yeah.
like half need here
Yep.
that we can get for like
And
2
it takes
seconds
2
or
seconds.
something?
Yep. 100%.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep. 100%. Yep. Yeah. Because
I
these are like, it's going to get off this player, especially expirings and whatnot.
Exactly. And we'll see if that's, and maybe Shake Milton would need to be that salary and that, the plenty of time until the deadline. I think Jake did have 2 big and ones in this
He
game.
did.
It's not the point guard thing that they thought maybe it was going to be from him. So we're keeping that on the back of our mind. You're right on the Gobert. I mean, the Gobert defensive plays insane, but we've like weirdly seen that a lot.
I thought when he's running out there, I'm like, he's probably going to
He's got it.
like it's like when Ant's
Right.
dribbling around, I'm like, what is he doing? Like, where is
Yeah.
this going? When Rudy is like, when the pass goes out to Sarge, I'm literally thinking like, Rudy's probably
He's
gonna
got
block
that.
this. Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah. And
have you like re-seen that clip? He shows to
yes,
deter Chris Paul at the nail. Chris Paul, like one of the best mid-range shooters of all
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I still
and
think
gets
Chris
to the
Paul
corner.
should shoot that, but
I think he should have.
Rudy puts
Yeah.
enough doubt in the mind of like maybe this isn't the right play, or
Mhm.
there's a shooter over there.
Right.
But like how many bigs have the ability to get there
Mhm.
on Sarge from showing, which is like your momentum's in the opposite direction,
Right.
and then chase over to the opposite corner. Like that is an incredible athletic play. And it's smart too. It's doing the smart things and the athleticism. That's what makes him kind of a rare breed.
I want to make sure we don't skip over Cat's game here too.
Yeah.
That was another one of the big threes there. Again, I said Kyle Anderson. I think there's like 1:10 left in the game. Kyle Anderson gets a huge offensive rebound. He kind of like takes a page out of the Kevon Looney book, just like nose tackle your way to the rim. They're not calling it. Gets the offensive rebound again. Kicks to Conley, who swings at the Cat. Cat hits a 3 there. What I thought was really interesting and important about Cat and his shooting, specifically in the fourth quarter, is he was 2 for 8 from 3, but before he hit those 3 threes in the fourth. And so many times, right? Like we've seen the shot stop falling for him and he stops taking them. And ultimately, I think that hurts the team. I guess, that's maybe it's a psychological thing. He tries to get to his drive more. But Carl is 2 for 8, starts 2 for 8 from 3 in the game, hits his next 3 threes there, enough so that when they had to call the ATO, Finch drew up an ATO for Cat for another one there. I just think I love to see 12 threes from Carl. I broadly loved his play in both of these games, kept a cool head. But that shot making, man, that's the 3-point shot making. That's the difference. And obviously it opens up. I mean, right, it didn't feel like Cat took too many threes last night. And he took 12, right?
No.
It didn't feel like a high number.
Anything offensively that worked last night would have been like, yeah, do it as many times as you have to. I don't know. But, I mean, I think a fair number for Carl would be like 8 a game. Like now in nights and 8 a games, gonna mean there's nights when there's 6, gonna mean there's nights when there's 12. But like that should kind of be the goal, I think.
Sure.
Like 8, 9, whatever in there. It sounds high, but it's not in today's NBA.
And they're there. They're not
they're
like,
there.
Teams are not selling out to run them off the line.
They're not selling out on Cat anymore. Like they're just not. You can't, because you can't sell out on Ant and Cat. You just can't. It doesn't work.
True.
But like I think in the fourth quarter last night, you just see like Cat, like Looney's on him. And so Looney's not going to get as tight. And Carl just feels really comfortable of like, he's always kind of known that. Like, okay, there's 2 feet here. I'm pulling the trigger without hesitating. I have perfect decision on what I'm doing here. And that leads to a confident stroke. And not always going to go down, but more times than not, they probably will. I just like the reliance. I like the reliance on it. Just like you. Like just pull the trigger. Like if you have a game where you go 2 for 10, it'll be like, bad shooting night for Cat, but we're not going to fault that you did it. Like I think that's something where like you will never be faulted if you're Carl for taking too many threes, as long as they're not like 32 footers or whatever, like just if you catch and shoot, good offense for Minnesota.
To have the reliance on it, right, you kind of have to be able to take different types of threes, and I remember when I was on my whole like Cat should take step back threes thing of I gave that up. It's not really happening, but I think a middle ground of that, which
he doesn't have to anymore. They have too much talent.
That's true. But he had, I don't know if it was, I think 2 of them where he just jabbed. He just jabbed, which is like for an average shooter, it is kind of like weird to catch, jab, and then reset to do it. But Carl's elite. He's not, he's a set shooter anyways. Like just that. What about like just a hard jab? And if they go back, take it. Like, so it's obviously there's gonna be the wide open catch and shoot ones. I think there should be some off the dribble ones because I think he can do it. Maybe you save that until you're rolling, but just a couple times when you have a bit like a 5 on you who's slow, like Kevon Looney's going to react to that jab every time.
Right.
And I just like to see that. And I think that's why he got to 12 last game, and just having a little bit of diversity in the threes that he can take. And man, it like, I don't know if just because last game was just a ugly game. It felt like when Cat would hit those 3 or just like 2 threes in consecutive possessions, that's just 6 points. It felt like 15. That was where the game totally shifted from. It was like, Wolves are down like 10. They're going to need a run to be able to do it. Those 2 possessions were the run. And then I'm like, I think the Wolves are going to win this game here. It's just, they need that extra offensive juice. They're not a good offensive team. This has not been a good offensive team. It's been a great defensive team. They have the potential to be, but the way to become top 10 offensively is through Carl. It just has to be.
Yeah, and I think like 2 reasons why I just think they're less likely to lose to bad teams this year. And like you're going to play around with some of them. That happens to every team. You can't get overly frustrated when that happens. But defensively, like they're just great. Like at the start of the fourth quarter, like it took the Warriors over 4 minutes to score. The Warriors weren't even like getting shot attempts. It was a lot of their possessions were just ending in turnovers, and then really bad looks when they did get looks off. So like when you play like that defensively, you're less likely to lose any game, but specifically to less talented teams. And then like not having Carl for a big chunk of last year, certainly they lost winnable games with Carl. They lost to Portland with Carl, but like when you have Carl and he's rolling like that, it just makes your talent like divide much.
It just makes it so your immaturity is the only thing that can really derail you.
It's less likely that you're not going to be able to score enough points to beat somebody, like because you can run bad offense, and if it ends in a Carl 26-footer, it's like, well, not that bad, like and you can get that look at any time. You can run bad offense and get Carl 26-footers at any time, and it's a decent look.
Last topic. Did you think that was the worst defense the Wolves have played this year?
I don't know. Yeah,
I do.
I mean,
I think I do.
It was less focused,
And
I
it's
think
not to say it was
it's-
bad.
I think the problem is when there's no game plan for those lineups. So like the Wolves, I think the point where
Golden
they're
State's offensive rating was 101.1, which is better than the Wolves' defensive rating for the whole season.
Right. And the Warriors, I mean, they had terrible offensive players on the court.
Yeah.
It's just I think for Minnesota with where they're at with their guys and whatnot, it's like here's the plan. Let's execute the plan. Everybody knows, okay, my job is this. When you take off all the guys you're going to focus on off the floor, and now it's like now we're just playing defense. And it's like, I don't know exactly what my responsibilities are here, or like, this isn't kind of what we drilled and shoot around or whatever. Like, I do think you can say it's harder to lock in because the guys aren't as good. I just think like then there's not a clear plan anymore. And for like their younger guys and whatnot, when there's not a clear plan, it's a little bit harder for them to execute.
I think that's a great point because I wrote this down because I write down the matchups. But before the game, they had Gobert on Draymond to start the game. Gobert on Draymond, Cat on Saric, McDaniels on Thompson, which was interesting.
Right.
Because they put Mike Conley on Chris Paul and Ant on Wiggins. So they did have a completely different game plan for this than actually ended up having to play with for the 46.5 minutes of the game. But I guess it was just so stark to me how like the Gobert defense in the first game was like an 11 out of 10.
Yes.
Like I think it's the best that I've ever seen in person. I think that's the best game I've ever seen in person defensively. So maybe because I'm going off of that into what that was, it was perplexing to me how elite Rudy was defensively, playing off of Draymond, being everywhere and always being this wall to the rim. And then I'm watching the first half and I'm like, this is not that at all. And I understand it. Like if I got put in a 10-second chokehold and had to go continue out playing, the stadium was so loud. They were giving it to Rudy the whole time, which I'm like, I don't even like, what did Rudy do here? He literally just like laid crucified in Draymond's arms. I'm not sure what we like hate about him here, but whatever.
Fans are being irrational? No.
Dude, it was
I don't believe you.
Loud. It was so that's probably Rudy Draymond beef. I probably need to go back and watch it, but it was a very different defensive game. And I'm just trying to figure out in my head why that was. Is that no Jaden out there? Is it Rudy dysregulated? The matchups, the coverages. I don't know. I just noted or will note that if tonight is kind of a rough defensive game too, maybe.
Sure.
It was just a little bit different than the elite defense that it's been all year.
I mean, I just think that when you totally get to like the bottom barrel of a team's lineup, like it's just going to be more like a roll of the ball out there feel. And I think the more structure a game can have, the better Minnesota is going to be. And I think the more it feels like it is a pickup basketball game, like that is going to play out of the Wolves' hands. And because they're just not going to be like as sharp, they're not going to, like specific assignments, those types of things. So like, that's why, like, I think they would have won by more had Draymond and Clay played last night. I mean, sure. I very strongly believe that. But
I think part of the answer is like Rudy didn't have to guard Draymond anymore because he was out of the game, and Draymond
is perfect for Rudy.
Perfect.
It's a team that has a non-shooting 4 or 5 or whatever is perfect for Minnesota. Like it's that makes their life 10 times easier to game plan and do exactly what they want to do. And
Golden State has 2.
Yeah, right. And so then when you have Looney in it, it's like it's and Looney's just so much more in the actions of what they're doing, like just in terms of pick and roll and whatnot. But it's not to say Draymond's not. Anyway, I'm just talking in circles. But yeah, it is something to look for, like because there was a little bit of slippage, but that's such a weird game, like where I just think like when you get a lineup out there that's just going to muck it up and just kind of roll the ball out and play, like I think that is going to make life a little harder for Minnesota. But I also think like if you lose, like if you play worse in those games, that doesn't mean anything for the long term because what game that actually matters that you're playing is going to feature that. You just can't lose. You just can't lose those games. That's it.
Right. You and I talk about this all the time. Like little things we're noticing that an opponent did well against the Wolves, and we're like, well, the smart teams, if they scout this game, will they do it? Do you think like just being extremely physical with the Wolves is going to be the book? And I mean, and part of that is defensively, but also just blasting them on the offensive glass and doing that, because if they're offensive rebounding, and the Wolves aren't really a running team. Do you think this is going to be a trend?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, me too.
Especially for specific, like teams that are specifically game planning for Minnesota, and you're coming in, maybe you've got a day rest, so you've got a time to put something together. Like, I think you can think in your head, like, that is maybe one way to some point get under Carl's skin. It didn't last night, but I can't say he was too involved in a lot of the physicality. But anyway, Ant clearly gets frustrated when the fouls calls aren't coming, when he feels like somebody's being over aggressive. Like,
yeah, Rudy, Ant, and Nas were all completely just, again, dysregulated by the physicality and the refs.
Nas looked good. Nas in the first quarter I thought was really solid, and then he totally did kind of get a little bit out of whack there. And Rudy, we see the same thing. Like when he feels like he's getting pushed and whatnot, and like maybe he's getting called for.
And he was, but like if they're not gonna call all of them.
Yeah,
Rudy's gonna go and go and go.
And so I do think there are only so many teams that understand that, like, you just set the tone. You need to do it every single time, and it's just like you said, they're not going to call them all. And to be fair to the Wolves, like, I think to the game in general, like, I don't think the Wolves were getting overly ticky-tack called, I think they just really let it go. But like coaches would say, like, it's mucking it up. And that is exactly what I think teams will want to do against Minnesota in general, is like, be physical, muck it up, see if you can get some frustration boiling. Like, that is probably what I would do against Minnesota, because when they are, like, quote unquote locked in, as we can see, they are really, really good. So yeah, I would expect that for sure, especially when you look at the rosters and you're like, we got a huge talent gap here. We don't have the personnel to line up with Ant and Cat. What can we do to win the game? And we can't score. So what are we going to do? It's.
Do you have any play-in tourney thoughts now that it's been happening?
In-season tournament?
Yeah.
It's too early for play-in tourney thoughts.
You know what I mean. My bad.
Yeah,
I slept like 4 hours.
I'm busting.
In-season. In-season tournament.
I've none. I don't know.
I bring this up because I noticed in the locker room after the game, like, they were talking about it. Like, which surprised me. Like, they're looking up the standings.
Yeah, I'm not
and the point differentials and
the
stuff.
teams that go 2-0, like the teams that start to win these games. I really think, like, you might head into it being like, I don't care. And then if you lose a game, you're like, I don't care. We're not going to make it. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then when you're like 2-0, it's like, are we going to get into what happens after that? Like when you start to have success in anything and you're like, maybe we could win this. What is this? How does this
What
work
happens
again?
after that?
Yeah.
Because what happens after that, I know, has a $500,000 pile of money.
When do we win that? How many do we have to win to
they
win
were,
that?
They were talking about, they were talking about the money part of it, is floating around, which is, I think that was the ultimate question I had with this overall, was you've chosen to make the incentive money. And to make these games good, you need to choose the right incentive.
Yeah.
Or to make it what they want it to be.
Right.
I don't know if that's ultimately what it's going to be. I just heard a few of the guys talking about it, obviously on just one team. But my guess was that nobody was going to care about it all year, and we weren't going to even really distinguish these games at all from regular season games. I can't tell if the teams were playing harder or fighting or whatever because it was an in-season tournament game. I don't think so. But there's been
Clay and
like a lot.
Draymond was clearly very into it. He really wanted that game last night. Yeah. I mean, I just do think it's always like every year it's going to be like, but then once you kind of put yourself in a position to like compete for it, then I think your juices are going to get going a little bit. It's not going to be like your main goal at the beginning of the year. And like I said, if you drop your first game or two, I don't think you're going to care. You're not going to be like, we're not going to win this. And then you're moving on and no game feels more important than the next. But yeah, if it comes down to like, hey, we have to win this game to get into the final 8 and we have to win it by 12 points or whatever. Like, I think guys will care about that. It's just something to play for, like, where it's like there are little added stakes to this, and like $500,000 might not matter that much. It certainly matters to guys at the end of the bench, but it might not matter that much to Anthony Edwards. But like, you think if Anthony Edwards played some $500,000 hand of poker that he wouldn't care? That he'd be like, whatever, I lost.
Right.
Like that big money is big money to guys no matter what.
Totally.
So yeah, I do think that it's enough to make guys care. And like, I know sometimes some people were like, well, why as a fan would I care about money? It's like, you just care about basketball.
You just care about basketball, and if the basketball is better, and if that makes the basketball better, and particularly at this time of year, I will say, like,
you don't think you're gonna be excited for your team to have a chance to just raise a trophy? You don't think you're gonna think that's cool? Like, I think everybody will think that's cool when your team wins it. You know,
I don't know. I won't think so.
I think what'll be funny is like the fans of the team who win it are going to care and think it's cool
Yeah.
and whatnot. Everybody else is gonna make
Get
fun
up
of
on the
that team.
scores table.
Everybody else can make fun of that team. When you win the in-season tournament and then you are eliminated in like the second round of the playoffs or something, everybody's gonna make fun of you, and it's gonna be like, well, at least you won the in-season thing. And I think my response would be like, well, at least we won something. Like, you know, basically one team a year wins something. So if you can win that thing too, you won something.
I guess. I don't know. I think I just don't follow soccer or anything. So like this whole concept of like, but I mean, some people are like, this is a great thing. And
Silver
soccer,
himself has pointed to that numerous times. And
yeah,
I don't know what, you know, like so often, I mean, a lot of these tournaments, I don't really follow them either, but it's teams from different leagues too, right? Like
I think so.
this is all the teams from the same league. Maybe there are some teams from the same league ones too, but yeah. I mean,
but I think that's more like World Cup, you know, for basketball, right? And I know that's not different, putting different leagues together by country,
right?
But yeah, it's I don't know. I haven't hated it. I haven't thought about it much. I kind
Indifference.
Yeah, that's where I'm standing on it. But I wanted to know who cares what I think.
I don't like
wanted
the court.
to note that the players, yeah, dude, and the courts. The players are slipping on the courts, and the balls don't bounce.
And the balls don't bounce the same. Luka Doncic kind of went off on this last night.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's like,
I watched like just random games, like honestly, not that much. And I have seen Tyrese Halliburton like do the splits right away at the beginning of the game and slip. I think maybe it was one of the Wolves. Was it the Wolves first?
They said, yeah, I saw
with the ball like Cap passed
Twitter,
it at the top of the key, and the ball just
didn't bounce. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy to me that they even thought to do this, because how many times, like in different games and like Final Fours or whatever, like the logos, like specific logos on the court, like that's too slippery. And now we made the whole court like basically like that type of thing, and we're just pretending like it's all going to be different. Fine.
It feels different when you stand on paint. Like even just like the borders of it, you know, we're like down there before the game or whatever. Like it is this slight elevation where you can like kind of feel like you are on the painted part of it, and the whole court becomes that. So I don't know. I've just seen enough slippage and stuff like that. I didn't know Luka said anything there, but yeah, I don't know. So they're working out the tweaks. Anyways, let's wrap this up. Wolves play the Suns tonight in Phoenix. I mean, back to back for the Wolves.
Right.
They've been here in San Francisco, coming from San Antonio. I mean, this is going to be.
This is their first. They've caught the other end of it with other teams. This is their first. Like we're on a back to back
schedule loss.
Yes. Yep. The other team has been at home. Devin Booker's playing. Everybody's playing. Like this is the first. Like and it's totally one where like it's super impressive if they win. I don't chalk it up as too much if they lose. But.
Right. They do have more Wolves numbers up here on Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com, Prize Picks app, promo code Dane for a $100 sign-up bonus. When I clicked on this before we started recording, only Ant was up there for these numbers are high. 27.5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, or you can take points plus rebounds plus assists, more or less than 37.5. That is just a sign of Ant as being viewed as a star in this league. What else do we have here? We got Cat's number set at 21.5 points. Rudy at 12.5 points. Mike Conley at 9.5 points. Jaden McDaniel at 9.5 points. Obviously, there's points, rebounds, assists, a whole bunch of other different things that I'm not going to click through right now. Any of those stick out to you? Mike Conley, 9.5?
Yeah, I mean, my logic that's easy. But my logic would always be just something like this, like I'll just take a Jaden McDaniels over. I'll take the guy who didn't play last night. And go with the freshest player and assume maybe he just has the most juice or gets leaned on a little bit more.
Yeah.
That would kind of be my go-to, like in a spot like this. As far as like actual matchups go, I don't know.
I haven't really thought about this Phoenix.
Who does McDaniels cover? Yeah, I mean, does he cover Booker or Kevin Durant? Probably Durant.
Well, we haven't. So that was what's actually noteworthy to me about the Golden State game. That's the first time I can remember in a long time that the Wolves chose to not put Jaden on the primary point of attack player. They put Mike Conley on Chris Paul rather than Jaden. He normally guards the point guard. We haven't seen it in Phoenix who that is, right? When it's all three of them playing, because they literally haven't all
Yeah.
played together.
I gotta think it's Devin Booker.
I gotta think it's Booker too.
I mean, he is their best player at this point. Like, no disrespect to KD, he's better than
Mhm.
Kevin Durant is, and like he's better at putting pressure on the rim. KD doesn't do that. So like, I think just as far as creating offense for
So
everybody,
who guards KD?
I don't know. Ant would love that. But I
Who
guess
is
maybe
Cat
he's on
guard?
Brad Beal. Yeah. So I don't know. Carl could guard.
Okogie.
Well, Okogie doesn't start anymore.
Oh, he does. Who's starting? I'm gonna watch the game.
Well,
on the,
I don't know
the-
who start. I don't know.
Yeah,
who
we don't
starts
know
when
who
all,
starts.
when all three guys
Nurkic,
play.
Nurkic, yeah.
Nurkic, yeah, and then Grace Allen's been starting, but I don't know who starts
Yeah.
when all three of the big guys play. No, I don't think they've done that yet. So
Yeah,
it'll be their
this is-
first time with all three of them playing.
Yeah, this is clearly my first time thinking about this for this matchup. I love this matchup game with the Wolves every night because who they're guarding and how they're going to be guarded, I think, is a really interesting question, just given the way that the Wolves roster construction is. So I don't know. I'm with you. I think Jaden 9.5 points. That's a number that makes some sense. Could this be a matchup where Carl is able to impose some size? I mean, I think normally he's been at like 20.5. They're giving him an extra point there to 21.5 points.
So he's had an uptick in play as well. So
Yeah,
that impacts it.
I mean,
The matchup does suggest that it would be good. There's nobody on, but
Yeah.
but his matchup's been good every night, frankly.
What do you think Carl will average points per game this season?
What's he at right now? What's he at in the
Probably
last?
like 8.
Click on that little thing. What's he at averaging in the last 5 games? A little graph,
Where I don't
a
know.
little bar graph in the top left. No, up top left.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know.
So okay, so in the last he's averaging 22.6.
look
in
at
his
you
last-
knowing all the details.
I've researched these things. I try to get them right. And I don't know. 22 sounds right.
Yeah. It's just interesting because it could be more than that. It has been less than that. It might.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a.
There will be more games this year he scores 8 points. There will be.
Yeah, that's true. And
That's
but
fine.
I think
You
that
know,
was
like-
one of no, it is fine. I thought that was one of the most impressive things about this San Francisco back-to-back or 2 games in a row here was that Carl didn't. I don't know. I keep saying dysregulated. I don't even know if that's the right word. Carl did not get dysregulated at all by the chippiness, the physicality, the anything. When straight up with no Carl's typically the most likely to fall into that sort of thing. I think it's worth noting that in our minds is a potential corner turning, just locker room wise. Like when we're in there, he's kind of back to. I really noticed after the first Golden State game, he's a little bit louder, more boisterous, where he was really trying to be quiet, subdued at the beginning of the season. So I think that's a good thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
when Carl can be himself, I think that often, more times than not, leads to him playing his best basketball. So I don't know. I think
the
it
winning-
could be a
I
good
think-
stretch here.
I think winning helps too. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think you are less likely to let your emotions get the best of you when you have confidence and like you just know like I'm on a good team. I'm a good player on this good team. You don't feel like you necessarily have to like prove yourself. And when things are going your way, you feel like the opposite's being proved or whatever. Like
I think he can't be clowned for being on a crappy team anymore.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you can't say this year that he's putting up empty stats. Whatever stats he puts
Right.
up this year, and that's what we're talking about. Like, what is that ultimately going to be? Like, they're not going to be empty. This is going to be and last year too. I mean, it was broken up season, but as soon as you start winning or being part of a winning team, that argument that he had empty stats, which was always silly in a lot of ways, that goes away. So I think you're right. Yeah, like this has got to just be empowering for him to be like, I'm on a good team and I'm part of it. And he's been actually, honestly, like the biggest part of it the last 3 games.
Yeah. Yep.
San Antonio second half at least, and this Golden State series. So
I like
anyways.
even when he's rolling, he's still making good decisions. Like when there's another play to be made, I really like that. It's not like I'm rolling right now, I'm going to keep forcing my shot. Like do it, take your shot when it's there. But like if it's obvious, if he gets the ball and it's obvious the right play is to just continue the swing, like he has done that. And that's a huge thing as well.
And the passes to Rudy aren't like, I thought that was just kind of like a thing he was doing at the beginning of last year to like show that he could do it. Like, I think he really believes, and he's probably right. That's just really good offense. Like he looks for that all the time.
Right.
Like sometimes when I'm like, that's weird that's the thing you're hyper fixating on. Then he just like finds them and it's clean and it's a dunk. And
yeah.
I think he deserves credit there too.
I do, and I always say more people should be doing that because there are more times I think where Rudy should have more 20-20 games because of like the position he's able to get. So like the more people who can actually be looking for him in just ways that make sense, the better. And so often it's not drive in and throw a lob. Like, yeah, that's there and it's great, but so often it is like just feed him right there. He's got the seal, like simple things.
Anyways, that was a long, kind of convoluted Prize Picks spot we did there. We love Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com, Prize Picks app. If you're not playing already, use the promo code Dane, $100 sign up bonus there. Maybe you messed around with it for football season. Now you got back in basketball season. It's something to do. I got people sending me like their nightly screenshots of what they got going in Prize Picks. I think it's fun. So PrizePicks.com, Prize Picks app, promo code Dane. Jace, I appreciate you doing this with me. I will see you back in the city.
Looking forward to it, man.
Follow Jace on Twitter at Jace Frederick. I referenced a couple of his articles. Read those over at the Pioneer Press. Until Thursday afternoon with Britt, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.